Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. We're back. Um, as usual, my name is Talha Rafiq.
My name is Badruddin Muhammad.
And together we run the College Muslim Podcast, which is a podcast all about talking about growing up Muslim in America as well as any Western society, and kind of talking just about the stuff that we've had to navigate through as young individuals in this society and how we
Deal with it.
Today's episode, I'm going to let Badruddin introduce it, and
Absolutely.
then we will go from there. Oh, and as usual, we are not Islamic scholars or sheikhs. What we're not providing is Islamic advice. What we are providing is just a framework of how we've lived our lives, how we've navigated these different type of difficulties, and we hope that's like going to help some of you guys throughout your journey and your path as well. So, Badruddin, go ahead and let's start today's episode.
All right. So, as you said, we talked a lot about on this podcast what we've done to sort of overcome obstacles growing up Muslim. Our first episode was about drinking and drugs, and that is an obstacle, and how we overcome that, the frameworks that we set. We've talked about cussing. We've talked about, in our Deen versus Dunya series, we talked a lot about different obstacles that we face within the Dunya that can sometimes hinder our Deen. And one thing that I realized today when we were brainstorming topics is that all of these obstacles have one thing in common, and the one thing is that being Muslim in a Western society, overcoming these obstacles requires a lot of self-control. Because if you think about it, drinking and drugs, cussing, any of the other obstacles of this dunya, they're all linked to giving up a sense of self-control, to give into something, to give into drugs, to give into drinking, to give into cussing. And being Muslim means that we need to have self-control to stay away from that. But having self-control can take a toll on your mind, on your body.
Yeah.
And that toll, it's hard. We all need to find a way to deal with it in a healthy way. I think that's the hardest part, is finding a way to, because there's a lot of things we need to control ourselves from on a daily basis. We haven't really talked much about maybe having a crush on someone or things like that, because you'll meet people throughout your lifetime that you might, and especially when you're single in college, and if you are single in high school and college, if you meet people and you have a crush on someone, that's a level of self-control that's required to not go through with it, or not to go through with something. Just as drinking and drugs, cussing, crushes, all these things are different obstacles that Muslimin in college and high school face on a daily basis. But that self-control needs to be dealt with in a healthy manner, and that's something that I'm still working on as well. So, inshallah, let's talk about it.
Yeah. Very hefty.
It is very
because
hefty.
it's also, I think we also bring up a lot of like how you're going to make mistakes, and I think one of the biggest mistakes everyone makes, especially Muslims in America in college and high school, is losing self-control.
Yeah,
I think that's in any regard. So
any of these obstacles that we talked about, to make a mistake, you have to give up a level of self-control.
Right?
Yes.
And so I think that no one is safe from this one.
And control's not easy. Control is like, I like to think of it like a muscle. Like it's like you grow up with the muscle not very well developed, and then obstacles come in front of you, and then how you deal with it, how much control you have not to give into something, that trains your muscle. So over time, yes, you build it up, but at the same time, the training never gets easier. To keep building that muscle, the training only gets harder and harder, and bigger obstacles come at you as you go on with life. The obstacles only get bigger and only get more dangerous.
Yeah, but that's why it's important to start training it from a younger age as well.
Yeah, because there's two ways to like train in the gym. You can like go in and like start trying to bench 4 or 5 day one, and then like tear a muscle.
Yeah.
Or you can start slowly and like and accumulating this training in a healthy manner, and putting it together in a healthy way, that when bigger and bigger obstacles come through, you have a framework to deal with them. And it's still gonna be hard, but it won't be as hard.
Yeah. All right, so let's start there. How about we start there? So when it comes to self-control, the very first thing is you're presented with an obstacle.
Yes.
Right. Okay, and that obstacle could be anything. It could be your friends, wanting to go to a party. It could be a girl who you have a crush on, who you like, who you kind of want to flirt with, or it could be
the other way around.
Anything. It could be a girl trying to flirt with you, right? So these are the different types of obstacles. So you always start off with this obstacle.
Yep.
Okay, and then you're given a choice, right? Is should I indulge myself in whatever this is, or should I stay away? And usually, I mean, that's we're viewing things as obstacles too. There could be plenty of things. Even something that's good is like, your friends are inviting you out to go play basketball, right? That's still a choice. You do the same thing there, right? But now we're talking about the negative things, the obstacles. So you're given a choice then.
Life is all about making decisions, but certain decisions are like very, I guess we can call them secular because like they don't like going out to play basketball with their friends. That's more of like you wanting to put your time in the right way, like versus school versus like basketball
Yeah,
versus that
yeah.
kind of stuff.
But this is like
Islamically, it's like
Islamically, right?
these are harder decisions because they, especially in society today, they're very normalized.
Yeah.
I think that's what makes it really hard.
So do you have a? So this is okay. So now we're at this point. We've got the
Mhm.
obstacle.
Yep.
Then you have the choice. All right. What does your next step usually look like? Do you have a next step? Because I have now come up with a methodology to approach questions that, or I have not come up with a methodology to approach things that question my self control. So I can start if you want me to.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay.
Not that on.
Whenever I'm presented with a choice,
Okay. It's like a little fork in the road.
yeah, whenever I'm presented with a fork of road, when it concerns something that I should not be doing Islamically. So here's the first thing: I have the knowledge of what not to do Islamically.
Yeah.
That is
Which is step one, and even finding that knowledge can sometimes be difficult for some people.
exactly, but that's
Yeah.
step one. You have to kind of that's where knowledge is important. You
Yeah.
have to gain this knowledge. You have to get an understanding of it. You have to know what the Quran says.
Yeah.
You don't have to know the exact like where in the surah it says, but if you
Yeah.
know this came from the Quran, this is what the Quran tells me, and this is what's right.
Yeah.
You got that now. So
Mhm.
whenever I'm given a fork in the road of this is my knowledge, but this contradicts what Islam is telling me to do.
Yeah.
I will pull out a piece of paper
Okay.
and I'll write down what it is, and then I'll write down, and this is if my self control isn't, if I can't hold back on my, it's like if I'm gonna get invited to a party, I don't really go to parties. Like
Yeah.
I can throw that away. That's just me though.
Yeah.
So if
definitely
you're
certain things are easier to self control with versus other things, especially like
for
when-
different individuals.
Yeah,
too.
for different individuals, it's a very unique case by case basis for each person because
Yeah.
each person has different life experiences. But yeah, you're right. Like sometimes some things are pretty easy-ish for certain people. Like for me, like when you talk about drinking and drugs for our first episode, like
Yeah.
that was pretty like binary for me. Like it wasn't that hard, and also because there's more of a secular perspective to it too, because you can like drinking and drugs is bad for your
Bad for your
health,
health. Yeah.
bad for your mental health, bad for your physical health, all that stuff.
Right.
So it's easier to do that. But when certain things are like,
Let's say a
there's no
crush. Let's say a
bad-
crush.
Yeah,
right.
let's
Okay.
just go for that. I feel like
Let's
that's
go.
where we're all
Let's go
going.
for
Yeah.
a crush, right? Like if you like a girl,
Yes.
right? It's natural to like someone.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not like there's like much that you can do. Like if you're gonna like them, you're gonna like
Yeah.
them. Okay.
That's totally fine.
So that's where your
Yeah.
fork in the road comes in. Is how do I approach it? First of all, if you are serious, this is something else that we could talk about another time. Maybe with a scholar on talk.
Yeah.
Then go the serious route.
Yeah.
Okay. Like go and like go to
Yeah.
a sheikh, go to your parents, get your families involved, blah
Yeah.
all that stuff.
That's
But
a whole nother
we're not
episode.
talking. Yeah, we're not talking about that. We're talking about if you just have a crush and you're in school and you like a girl, and
a girl that you wouldn't necessarily see yourself
yeah,
with
with
but
like
you're kind
long
of
term,
attracted
you're just
to,
kind
yeah.
of attracted to them, right?
Yeah.
And you want to flirt with them. Okay,
Yeah.
let's say that's the problem. Okay, so what I would do in that situation,
Okay.
which I have done in that situation,
Okay.
is I pulled out a sheet of paper, I wrote down my problem.
What is with you on paper?
I love
Keep
paper.
going.
Just pull out a sheet of paper, write down what your problem is.
All right.
And you're gonna draw literally a fork on the paper.
Nice.
Okay, like two directions.
Okay.
And on one side, you're gonna write down everything that you're gonna do and that's gonna come out of it if you do it.
Mhm.
And on the other side, you're going to write down all your reasons for possibly not doing it and why those reasons make sense.
Mhm.
Okay, so for me, let's give an example, right? I have a crush on a girl. I want to flirt with her. She's in my science class.
Okay.
She's in my biology class.
Okay.
I don't know, something like that. On the right side, the fork that's like, if I choose this path, if I choose to flirt, I'm going to
Mhm.
write down, okay, I will flirt with this girl tomorrow. I'll make her laugh.
Okay.
We'll get along.
Okay.
We'll rub shoulders.
Okay.
She'll give me the googly eyes,
Okay.
right? All that kind of stuff. You
I
write
like
that.
the level of detail.
No, but you go deep into it.
No, yeah, of course,
right?
because it's important for
'Cause-
you because sometimes like, especially when we get in our heads about these things, I think, but personally for me, like I'm a little bit too smart for my own good when it comes to this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like I'll be like, oh no, that's fine, or this is fine. Like I won't go that
You'll
far.
justify,
but
yeah,
you'll
you'll
justify.
justify
But if
it.
you write down on a piece of paper and you write down the level,
Every scenario.
the complete detail, and then it leads you to an end point where like you're like, no, this is not what
Yeah,
I want.
But
then
if
it's
you're
easier to-
if you go down the
to stay
scenario,
away.
it's gonna probably end out at like this is also like, would you go as far as dating, right?
Yeah.
If you would, then that should be in your list.
Yeah.
If you wouldn't, then that's where your list ends.
Yeah.
Right. So you keep going down the list until it ends. Okay.
Yeah.
And then it's, on the other side, you write down the reason you're not going to do it. First of all, my parents are going to kill me, right? So you write that down, right? But you write down parents.
Yeah.
You write down values. You
Mhm.
write down that you wouldn't want to marry a girl who's going around dating guys. Just
Yeah.
like, so if you're not going to marry a girl like that, why would you be the guy who does that?
Yeah.
You write down religion. You write down Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's commands. We write
Yeah.
down why you would do things for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, why you would do things the way the Prophet Muhammad did it,
Mhm.
right? So you write down all those things. And some of those
Yeah.
reasons could be logical too. Like if I date and donate my heart, like Mufti Menk
Donate
says,
my heart.
yeah, Mufti Menk says
Yes,
something that's
yes.
amazing. He says
Uh-huh.
that we get used to donating our heart. And when you
Mhm.
donate your heart, it gets broken. And when
Yes.
you're not trying to donate your heart, you're trying to give some of your heart to
Yeah.
someone eventually. But you write down all that stuff logically. Like this is going to be a girl who's going to like have a say on my emotions, right?
Yeah.
And if things don't work out, I'm going to be hurt,
Yeah.
right? So you write down all the things, of the reasons why you don't want to do it.
Mhm.
Okay. And the reason you do all of this is because self-control is really just denying your natural inhibitions.
Yep.
And if you don't have self-control, then really you're just a slave to your emotions and your desires and your will.
Yeah.
And people are always like, "Oh no, but I want to."
Especially in this day and age,
Yeah.
everyone's like just give in to
Do
all
whatever you
the
want.
inhibitions, give in to
Yeah.
all the natural instincts that you have as a human.
They say do what you feel is right.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the truth. You
Yeah.
have to do what
No,
you think is
absolutely.
right.
Yeah.
So there's a difference. When you feel is right, you act on those emotions and desires. You don't have self-control. When you do what you think is right, you write down that sheet of paper and you give yourself thinkable reasons of why am I going to do this.
Self-control is also easier to do when it comes from a rational perspective than when it comes from an emotional perspective.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And no one's gonna write like a million lines based on emotions, right?
Yeah.
Eventually you're gonna get to conclusions, you're gonna get to like endpoints, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's what I do when I'm presented with an actual like dilemma.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I do something very similar. It's all in my head, but at the end of the day, it's more like I like movies. We've talked about this.
Yeah.
Like, my minor is in American pop culture, so it's like talking about movies and stuff. So I'll like play out a movie in my head. I'll be like, okay, so I have one movie and I have the other movie. Like there's two movies. That's where the fork in the road comes in. There's one movie where, okay, say I do flirt with the girl and like we end up dating, getting married, we have kids, and then like now like there's a fork in the family too, because like, well, say I'm still very much Muslim and then she's not Muslim, like what's that gonna look like? And the other fork in the road is I don't do it and then I keep going on with my life. Maybe inshallah I meet my future wife one day and then we have kids and then it's a much happier family. So like obviously I extrapolate things out way farther because I like thinking about the future, but that's like one way it's very similar to how you do it on a sheet of paper. I'll just do it in my head. But I feel like that's a great step one to start off with.
They both have the same like methodology.
Yeah.
The methodology is see what this results in.
Yeah.
See what this becomes. And
extrapolate it out to until you get to a point where you feel like, no, this is not what I want.
Yeah.
Because step one always is what you want, like flirting with a girl or like dating someone. Like that can be at the innate nature of the human being. That can be what you want.
Yeah.
But when you extrapolate it out to your future, you realize, no, this is not what I want.
Right. It's coming from the perspective of thinking about like who you want to be, what you want to be, rather
what
than
kind of person you want to be. What do you want your life to look like?
Rather than who you are right now.
Yeah.
So you make these decisions based off who you want to be, not who you are right now. And like it comes down to everything, like even vaping, right?
Yeah.
Like I think vaping is very popular. Like now more
right
than
now,
ever, right?
Yeah.
And so it's not do I want to be vaping right now? It's do I want to be vaping around my family in the future? Do I
want to have lung cancer?
Do I want to have lung cancer 60 years from now, right? Do I want to maybe accidentally dive into other things because I stepped into the door of vaping? Maybe I go into smoking. Maybe I go into tobacco.
Other drugs.
Other drugs. And then also like, if you're like looking into like, if you're in a family where no one vapes, right?
Mm-hmm.
If that's the lifestyle you want to live in the future, do I want to be the one fighting against my own inhibitions then so I don't smoke in front of my family or don't smoke with my family, right? So it comes down to those kind of thoughts. You have to think in the future tense of, and a lot of times young people don't do that. It's just the way it is, right? I didn't do that all throughout high school. No. I only started that like once I entered college and I realized what I'm doing right now is going to affect me in 5 years.
I did that a lot, like starting in like 5th grade of elementary school is when I started thinking about the future a lot. And I think that's what helped me stay in control throughout middle, not get into as many bad situations as some of my peers have, is because thinking about the future, I think is, alhamdulillah, a tool that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave me from an early age, because that helped me a lot. Because when I started thinking about like, what do I want my life to look like? What kind of career do I want? What kind of family do I want? What do I want my family to look like? Those kinds of thoughts and those kind of prompts and thinking about those kinds of things was the number one thing that helped me stay Muslim in high school and college.
Right.
And even today, like whenever I'm faced with certain decisions where there's certain inhibitions I want to give into, I will think about my future. I'll think, where does this lead? Where is this going? I feel like that's a great question to ask yourself whenever you're faced with drinking or drugs or cursing or dating or things like this. It's like, where is this going to lead? Where is this going?
Who am I going to become?
Who am I going to become?
What am I doing? What I'm doing.
Yeah. Where is it going to lead in multiple ways? Where is this going to lead just like spatially? Like, what is my life going to look like? Where is this going to lead in my heart?
Right.
Where is this going to lead with my relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala?
Yeah.
Like, what is my prayer going to look like when I'm dating someone? What is my prayer going to look like when I'm vaping? What is my prayer going to look like when I'm drinking?
Yeah.
How is that going to look? When you start thinking about it, and then eventually you realize a point like, it's not about how it's going to look. It's just not going to be there in the first place.
Yeah, actually, you said that's actually new. Okay, so what you just said was like kind of different. I think like
I saw TikTok the other day.
Yeah, did you?
I saw TikTok about this. A scholar was talking about how like people will be like, oh, like I can date and I can still be Muslim and I can just break it off later on. Like that's a very like common thing you hear sometimes. And the scholar was like, how is your salah going to look when you have a girlfriend?
Yeah, that's that I haven't thought about. I've always thought like, yeah, this is gonna affect you in that realm of things. But
Yeah.
I guess if you do something, right? If you give up your self control, it affects you in other aspects of your life, right? Like, what does your religion look like when you've given your heart away in
Yeah.
that sense? Like,
What does your dua look like when you are going to drink 5 minutes later?
yeah,
What say parties happen around what, like 9? I don't know,
Like-
9, 10, somewhere around sometime at night. So
Night,
after Isha,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Okay.
we literally go to a school known for partying,
And we don't know.
and we don't know what time the parties are.
Alhamdulillah, that's a good thing.
Yeah,
But
9 p.m., 10 p.m.
probably after Isha.
Sure,
okay?
after Isha. Yeah.
So what is your Isha Salah gonna look like when moments after you're going to go into a frat house and drink?
Wow, that's
What-
crazy. I have never thought of it like that.
That's what's been getting me through the last few weeks, bro. Like I saw that TikTok like a couple weeks ago, and that's what's been getting me through it. It's like, what is my Islam going to look like when I am committing these sins? Pause for a moment.
You know, I think I've come to that conclusion using that paper method I was telling you about.
Uh-huh.
Is like I have like come to the conclusion like I write down the like rule of Islam. Why am I stopping myself
Mhm.
from doing this? But I don't think I've ever made the connection that it is going to in a way make me a hypocrite, or in a way make me like change the way I'm doing what I'm doing.
Yeah. Right.
That's interesting. I want to brood on that later, maybe.
Yes.
Yeah, but that's very, very
It's-
interesting.
It was a different-ish way of thinking about. Cause yeah, I've always done the whole like 2 movies in my head, like one movie with like me making the decision, one movie with
Without
me
you
not,
making the
without me
decision.
making a decision.
But have you ever thought about playing one movie out and then looking at the things
Zooming
from
into a certain scene,
Yeah.
zooming into my scene where I'm praying salah, zooming into the scene where I'm making
Because
dua.
it's not like you're
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm gonna like flirt with this girl all of a sudden. I'm not Muslim.
Yeah.
You're like, that's not the decision fork in the road that we're talking about.
Well, one thing about dating too, I heard this a while ago,
Yeah.
in like a khutbah or something. But when you commit zina, Allah Subhanahu wa Taala takes your iman and holds it above you.
Mm.
So that was also very dangerous. Well, that was also like something that deters me from that. Is like, imagine having a girlfriend and your iman is being held above you, and you're still praying. But what is prayer without belief or iman or
Yeah,
conviction? You know.
that's true.
So that links back to the whole like, what does your prayer look like when you are dating or when you are
Yeah.
committing certain sins?
Okay, so okay,
yeah.
swinging back to that now. Now you got the obstacle. You're given the choice. You created your chart. You did your movie
Yes.
play out in your head, right? Like you have your
So now you made a decision.
now you made a decision as to what you want to do.
But these things don't just. It's not a one-time thing.
It's not like I made a decision. I'm good to go for the rest of my
Yeah,
life. Like
no.
when you do give up something, especially that your
Yeah.
desire, right?
Yeah.
You don't end up always feeling like I just made the best decision of my life. Like I'm happy.
No,
You're
yeah.
not always gonna be
Yeah.
happy. Like there's plenty of times where I wish I could have gone out and hung out with friends.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe not at a party, but at a maybe where the girls and guys were mixing and they were
Yeah.
close friends. I've always wanted I've
Yeah.
always like there are moments when I wish I could have done that.
Yeah.
So when I choose the decision not to go, it's not like wow I'm amazing. Like I've done
that's
great.
great,
Right.
yeah.
Right. I go like ouch.
You don't always feel great. It's like
No,
FOMO.
Yeah, sometimes that hour I would have spent like this actually happened like a week ago.
Okay.
Right, a couple of my friends went out and I was like, damn, I wanted to go,
Uh-huh.
but the reason I didn't go. But then that night I wasn't feeling too like strong either, so like I just kind of sat
Mm.
and like I wasted an hour,
Yeah.
right? And so that's like the toll
Yeah.
of exercising self control. Is it
Mhm.
won't always be that hour becomes a productive use somewhere else.
Yeah. No.
It might just be you go to bed and you just kind of lay there for 45 minutes and watch Netflix, like,
yeah.
or you just
or just think like,
just think.
what would it have been if I had done that?
What would have been after that? And
Yeah.
I have had I mean, I guess I've been blessed, right? So
Yeah.
the thing is, I wake up the next morning, I wake in 2 days, and I'm proud I made that decision then.
Yeah.
But in that moment, I don't always feel good. Sometimes that moment
barely
lasts,
ever feels
yeah,
good,
that
bro.
moment sometimes lasts more than a day. Like it'll last 2 days, 3 days, right?
Yeah.
It will wear off. But the thing is, when I train myself to that, it'll be easier next time. I've realized that
Mhm.
about myself. So it's much easier to turn things like away
Yeah.
now than before because I have practiced that denying of like my desires,
Mhm.
right? So it does get easier. I will say it does get easier. But now let's talk about the toll it takes.
Yeah.
Because as a Muslim who's
I feel
denying
like,
a lot of things Western society gives,
One
it's
thing I do
hard.
want to talk about is it getting easier? I think the same going against the same thing gets easier, but when the stakes get higher, it gets harder sometimes.
That is very true.
Yeah.
That is very true.
Because like sure, like let's say honestly I can't even think of anything. But like okay, say there's like a small sin that you said no to, and saying no to that small sin again gets easier, but when a bigger sin comes in front of you, it gets harder.
It does
sometimes.
compound in a sense.
Yeah.
I would say. Like for example, like saying no to like, let's go back to that example of like flirting with a girl, right? Or if you're a girl flirting with a guy.
Yeah.
So yeah, the more you kind of stay away from that, the easier that gets. But also,
Does it
when,
really though?
in my
I feel like it's
opinion,
harder
in
for me.
I think it's harder because coming back to the reason
Yeah.
like of what you're saying, right? It's easier to like do it the small scale stuff, but when you get something more serious or you find someone who's also into you or
Oh
like
yeah, yeah.
any of that stuff that's like even deeper, right? That's also hard, but you're never going to be able to deny that if you couldn't deny the flirting.
Yeah. No,
In
of
my
course.
opinion.
Yeah.
So like if you can't do like step 1, you're never going to be able to step 2. So yeah, step 2 is harder, but you need to do step 1 to be able to contradict step 2.
Yeah, but the thing where I wanted to go with step 2 is that, okay, so say you say no to a sin one time, it's not just gonna be a one time thing. Like you're not just gonna meet this. So say you were attracted to a certain girl or a
Right.
guy, and you see them one time and you say no to it and like you don't go through with it. But say you see them the next day, like you have to go through that whole thought process again. Yeah,
And that's a toll.
yeah, and
That's a mental
that is
toll.
where the toll takes place. That's where it starts compounding.
Right. No, that's actually a really good point. I've faced that too.
Yeah.
A lot. So I know.
Especially like I think since we are the college Muslim, in college and high school you have classes with these people.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
say you're attracted to someone, you are going to see them again the next day for a whole year,
Yeah.
and that is where the mental toll of self control will compound, and that's where we need to develop strategies to deal with that in a healthy manner.
Right.
And that's something I'm still working on. I think.
I think okay. So coming to like one of my methods
Mhm.
of doing that is I make the obstacle know who I am. So
yes. I see
so
what you're getting at.
yeah.
Okay.
So if my obstacle is a friend
Mhm.
who vapes or smokes,
Yeah.
then I let my friend know straight off the bat. I don't say no when he offers it to me. I say early on, I'm Muslim. I don't do this stuff. I'd appreciate if you don't bring
I
it
call
up.
this the Muslim card strategy.
The Muslim card. It is a Muslim card.
It is a Muslim
It's
card.
like, yeah, like this is who I am, right? Like
Draw up the white flag.
yeah.
I'm
And
Muslim.
obstacles will usually avoid you in that sense. And for example, like then those friends won't ever offer me an e-cig or a vape.
Yeah.
If they do and they're pestering me about it, which I don't think has ever really happened to me. I think when I usually do pull the Muslim card,
Yeah.
it's pretty good to go.
Yeah.
If that does happen to you, then you need to remove yourself or you need to go complain to some like
Yeah.
dean or someone because like no one should be pushing on you that hard.
Of course.
But I think playing that Muslim card, if it's a girl, right?
Yeah.
I have developed a new tactic.
Okay.
Okay, you're gonna love this.
But let's stay on the Muslim card one more. One thing.
It is a Muslim card. It is a
Yeah,
Muslim card.
okay,
But this Muslim card, this
Okay.
this is like when I'm working on group projects
Uh-huh.
or I'm like interacting with girls at college, right?
Okay.
If I know that I'm going to talk, not just like the hello, hi, like what
Yeah.
class, like if I'm never gonna talk to you again, I don't really care.
Yeah.
But if I know I'm gonna be working with you for hours, whatever, within the first 5 minutes, I drop the bomb. Yeah, I'm Muslim. I don't date. I don't really like hug
Yeah.
girls. I don't do that stuff. And just by saying that stuff, like automatically that girl like changes her perception on I am,
Mhm.
and it'll never come up that she'll be attracted to me because she's like, this guy won't ever be into me. He won't ever look at me. He won't ever hug me. He won't ever high five me. And
Mhm.
so then the girl just won't put in the effort because she's like, what's the point of flirting with you? I'm not gonna get anything out of it.
Yeah.
And by her not even putting in the beginning effort, then it's easier for you if there are small slip ups to like avoid things. But if you don't put that out there, then a girl might, like be a little bit flirtatious, a little bit more relaxed. She might hug you because hugging is normal here, right? So
Yeah.
she might hug you and
Especially
then,
in LA. Man.
yeah, she might come for the hug and then you have to deny her then.
Yeah.
That's harder to do than in the beginning just being like this
A
Muslim card.
Yeah, the Muslim
right?
card.
So like what was your thing about
But
the Muslim card?
the one thing I wanted to say is that let's also take a moment to appreciate that I don't know about you, but sometimes pulling out the Muslim card that is also an act of self control.
That is a huge act of self-control.
Yeah, it's a huge act of self control to
Yeah.
not pull out the Muslim card. Well, I don't know if self control is the right word, but it does require a large amount of strength
of courage
to pull it out.
Yeah,
Courage
it takes a lot
to
of
pull it
courage.
out. Yeah, I think sometimes it's really easy. I think physical contact is one where it's really easy. Like if someone like tries to give me a handshake, then I have to be like, I'm sorry, I don't do physical contact with people of the opposite gender. It's a Muslim
Yeah.
thing. It's like a respect thing. And then they're cool with it. And then I can explain like I'm Muslim, I don't date, I don't do certain things.
Yeah.
And honestly, sometimes it's really cool because I want to learn more about Islam, and I love talking about it. But
Yeah.
if that happens, that's easy. But sometimes like pulling out the Muslim card on your own within like you said the first 5 seconds or the first 5 minutes, requires a considerable amount of strength.
You also have to get like used to it. Like
Yeah.
you have to like
Practice.
you have to practice it
is
and you
important.
have to make it part of who you are. Like they asked me like, oh, like what's your name? Like my name's Talha.
Yeah.
What is like major, blah blah blah, this all that kind of stuff. Somehow I'll find a way to work it in,
Yeah.
right? I'll be like, and if they're
I
like,
think the name thing is really easy too. Because sometimes, for me, definitely, I have to be
Yeah.
like, better Adin, or like, oh, what name is that? What's
Yeah.
Arabic? I'm Muslim, and then okay, oh, you're
but
Muslim.
usually,
then it comes through.
and usually in intros, especially ones with people who you're gonna be with
Yeah.
for a while, they involve some kind of story.
Yeah.
So I always turn my
Or icebreaker question or whatever. Yeah.
yeah, like what high school did you go to? How did you end up doing this major? Like if you say something interesting, they'll be like, they'll ask you about that interesting thing. You tie Islam into it.
Yeah.
Like I always tie Islam into it. I'm like, yeah, I was in high school. Like I did multiple projects. I'll mention the podcast sometimes, right? I'll be like, yeah, I have a Muslim podcast. You get interested in that. So you have to tie Islam into your story for you to pull that Muslim card out early enough.
Yeah. And I think it's also another topic we're considering doing later on, inshallah, is like involving Islam into your identity, which is a whole other process.
Yeah.
It's a whole other thing that individually we all have to work on ourselves with, is like, how do I imbue Islam into my identity as much as possible, where I'm able to bring it up where it is a part of who I am.
Yeah. So Muslim card.
Yeah, Muslim card. Easy.
Great way to
I think the second one, the one that worked for me really well last year, and this year it's a little bit harder to do because, well, I'll just say it. So it's like surrounding yourself with other Muslims is a very easy way to do this.
Yeah.
I think last year I was here all the time for not so great reasons, because I was pulling a lot of all-nighters trying to keep my grades up.
Yeah.
But I was here, so I would be interacting with a lot of Muslims.
When you're saying here, you mean the
University Religious Center.
The religious center.
The prayer room.
So we have a prayer room for Muslims on our campus.
USC.
Yeah.
Yep.
But continue.
Yes. So I would be in the prayer room all the time because I was studying. I was trying to bring up my grades. So, which is not a good thing. That's not a healthy way to do college. We are the college Muslim. That's not a good healthy way to do college. But being in the prayer space, I would see Muslims all the time. I would be because I was there until like Fajr. I would just take an extra 5 minutes. I mean, I stayed for hours. Might as well take an extra 5 minutes to read some Quran and those kinds of things. Like, these are two strategies. First of all, like, there's talking with other Muslims, and then there's strengthening your iman. I think both those things help a lot when it comes to increasing self-control and strengthening your self-control. Because when I was around a lot of Muslims, I would see Islam on a daily basis, and it would be like, because sometimes when you interact with, one thing I've noticed is that when I'm with a lot of non-Muslims all the time, it feels weird to be Muslim sometimes, because everyone around you is non-Muslim, everyone around you is doing a certain thing, and you're the only one doing life a certain way. It can feel kind of isolating. Isolating, I think, is the right word for this. It can be isolating when everyone around you lives life in a certain way, and you have to live life in a different way. But when you're around other Muslims, everyone around you is living life in a very similar way. And I think that helps a lot. And then the second one is strengthening your iman. When you are, that's why salah and reading Quran and these kinds of things are so important to our deen, is because they help strengthen the iman. And when you strengthen your iman, I think personally for me, like when I pray all my salah on time, when I'm reading Quran, when I'm making dua and having a connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it strengthens my ability to have self-control, to stay away from certain things. Those are the two things that I think worked really well for me last year. It's just this year I'm more healthy in my academics, so I'm not here all the time, but I'm trying to work on it on my own time, inshallah.
Yeah. I think those are also the two most practical ways to do it.
Absolutely.
Because as a student in high school and college, you kind of have like not a lot of time.
Yeah.
Like, you're doing a lot of things, and so you can only control so much to begin with. I think like one of my other new things is, like, now that I'm like getting a bit older and I have a bit more flexibility, I have a car, I can go involve, like, tonight we're going to a different like event that's happening at a masjid. So that's one of the things I think that's like the third thing you can do is you can go and be an active member of communities that are Muslim, right?
I think community is a very important thing.
Yeah, but that's also a little bit maybe harder to achieve. So I'll get into that in a second. But the first two things are, I think, the most applicable, because
The Muslim card and strengthening
the Muslim
your iman.
card and strengthening your iman, especially through people who are around you.
Yeah.
Right? Because those are two things you can control.
Yeah.
You can control what you do alone on a daily basis, such as like reading Quran and reading tafsir, getting to like understand what the Quran is saying.
And one thing that it took me a while to accept is the fact that I think when you first think about it, you think, oh, like me reading Quran and me like praying my salah has no impact on how hard the challenges of the world are. But one thing it took me a while, and once I noticed it, I was like, this is crazy, is like, when you spend your time strengthening your iman, the challenges of life don't get easier, but your ability to deal with them does. And it's not something you notice until you've done the shift, until you've put in the work to strengthen your iman. Then you start to notice, wait, this isn't as hard as it was.
Yeah, and strengthening iman in that way consists of growing your knowledge. It consists of how more in touch you're feeling with yourself, with us, with Allah. So it's like strengthening iman is a big overarching thing for multiple things. But yeah, I completely agree with you on that one.
I think salah is a very easy place to start. Like, say if you're praying all 5 salah, start adding sunnah in, start adding tahajjud in.
Yeah.
Start making sure that like you have khushu in your salah, start being more concentrative.
Yeah.
Add in some new surahs. Like,
what you spend time on is what you become.
Yeah, and I think when I first started doing this, I was like, I don't know if this is really gonna change the challenges of the world, because the world is gonna stay stagnant. The challenges are gonna be equally as hard. But strengthening your iman, you might not think praying an extra 2 rak'ah of sunnah in the moment, you don't think, oh, this is going to make it easier for me not to flirt with that girl. but trust me, it will.
Yeah.
And when I started adding more to my salah, salah is like the easiest one for me. It's like, I think it's like, because we have to do it 5 times a day. It's very easy to add on to that or like make it better. So when you start strengthening your salah, it becomes much, much, much easier to deal with the challenges of life.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
100% agree with that. I think one of the best things I've done for myself is prioritize namaz on campus, like making sure I come in and do it. Like it's literally a reminder 5 times a day.
Yeah.
And
it's a little iman boost.
It's like a little iman boost. Yeah.
It's like a video game.
Like a power up.
Like
I was literally thinking about like Mario Kart and like picking up a power up on the way.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Because life is a race, and you're trying to get through. You're trying to get through life.
That's
you got
hilarious.
A little power up in the middle.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious. All right. So we've got the obstacle coming at you. You've got the fork in the road, the choice, right? You've let's say we didn't dive into what if you choose a bad choice, right? We'll not worry about that, right? We're talking about
that for another episode.
We'll talk about the ramifications of picking to be a good Muslim, right?
Yeah.
So you pick that choice, and now you have the effect of that choice, right? And so we kind of dove into that a little bit, how to make that dealing easier. But let's go into like the final aspect of all this is mentally.
The final boss of Mario Kart.
The final boss of Mario Kart. Mentally, how taxing it can be, and how do you heal yourself to not just make it easier to avoid next time, but how do you heal yourself so you find joy and happiness in the choice you decided to make?
Yeah. That's heavy.
Yeah, but you have to like enjoy the ramifications at a certain point. Yeah. Or you have to figure out a way to enjoy that time, because if you end up just hating every single moment of rejecting every single bad thing, then you're just going to turn to the bad things because they're more fun. Yeah. Right? Absolutely. I'm not denying that. Going to a party, flirting with a girl, like smoking, vaping, those things can be fun.
That's why it's so hard to control yourself, because they are fun things. They are what I guess society would call your natural instincts. Yeah. Which, sure, there might be natural instincts, but that doesn't mean they're good.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so how do you transform that time into something that's enjoyable and fun? And I can start because I've done that.
Go for it.
I think this is the one thing I think I've mastered at this point.
Nice. MashaAllah.
Yeah. When I reject something that might be fun but not in line with my values, I'm usually it usually opens up time and space. Yeah. So there are times like I was telling you, like about 2 weeks ago, there was something I had to reject and I just kind of laid it in bed. So there are times where I won't like do anything, right? Those are the
sometimes that is a way of healing.
That is a way of healing, but you don't want to do that every time.
Yeah, right? it's not a good way of healing.
Yeah, because if that's your every time, it's gonna compound really fast.
Then you get depressed.
Usually what I'll end up doing is I take initiative on my life. Okay. So I think when you do reject something that is an obstacle coming towards you, when that obstacle didn't come from inside of you, usually the obstacles are presented most of the time. So if that obstacle is presented and you go around the obstacle, you're like no to the obstacle. What did you essentially do is you took control of your life and you push something aside. So the feelings that now are coming towards you again, why are you letting those feelings hit you as well? Just like you told the obstacle, no, I'm not going to let you take me. When the emotions of rejecting or feeling lonely or any of those kind of things come at you, you look at the emotions and you don't just accept them. What you say is, no, I'm going to take control.
Refuse to feel this way.
I refuse to feel this way. And that doesn't mean just like go to bed and like fight the emotions.
Wallow in your
it doesn't just mean
sadness.
it doesn't mean fight those things. It doesn't mean wallow in those things. What it means is take control of your life. That time is now yours.
I also think like the same way we had to go through a 2-step process for dealing with the obstacle, now you have to go through another 2-step process to deal with the emotion.
Your emotion is also a fork on the road. You can either feel it, you can either feel hurt, and you can feel lonely, and you can feel like no one cares about you, and you can feel like everyone's got a girlfriend, everyone has a partner, I'm alone.
Everyone's going to parties.
Everyone's living it up. Everyone's like they're laughing and enjoying it, right?
I think a lot of high schoolers feel that it's called the teenage angst, right?
Yeah, I felt that.
Yeah, everyone's life is so much better than mine. That's what every high schooler thinks.
I wouldn't say I still feel it, but I still get approached by the same emotions. Like the emotions are still coming at me, right? But what you do is now that time is yours. Now you can dictate what to do with that time. Yeah. I don't think you should sink into like, oh, I have to work and work and work, right? I have to distract myself. I think you go and do something that you find that is fun, that is also in line with what Islam dictates.
And that's
And
why finding a community is
that's
so
why finding
important.
community is important, right? Like the brothers all play soccer and basketball and
Yeah.
volleyball. Me and you have participated in both, all
Absolutely.
at least one of those.
Yeah.
So that is the halal way to go in.
Yeah.
If you find that fun, go do that, right? That will also strengthen your iman, right? Because you're doing it in the name of Allah subhanahu
And
subhanahu wa
inshallah,
ta'ala,
yeah.
and you're like avoiding those things in the name. So that becomes a form of ibadah as well.
Yeah.
So then you start associating every time you reject something that's bad, that's an obstacle, you're associating that with doing something that's fun and it's coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's like the main thing I made the connection with. So sometimes it's sports, sometimes it's like just hitting up friends and being like, let's go out to eat, right?
Yeah.
Other times it's like going to the masjid event that we're going to tonight,
Yeah.
right? Stuff like that. You stay active.
And there's a commonality in all of this. Is one thing, a little call to action, I guess, is when I was growing up, I realized that the reason why I thought my life was so much harder than everyone else's is because of that lack of community. When you start realizing that everyone else's life seems so appealing, is because all the non-Muslims, they do things together. They like all these like obstacles that you seem to face. Like all these non-Muslims are going out to party. All these non-Muslims are having relationships with. They're also meeting these people in places where a lot of men and women are mixing.
None of them would be fun if they were just in a like imagine being in a frat house, just completely alone with music playing in the background and chips laying on the table, but you're
Yeah.
the only person in the house.
Oh yeah,
It's not fun.
absolutely.
Why would
Yeah,
you do
no,
that?
absolutely. I think all these sins that we talked about, they happen with other people.
Yeah.
And in the same way, the call to action that I guess inshallah, when I set up my life in the future, is that I want to raise my kids in a community of Muslims, because when you have a community of Muslims who celebrates Eid together every year, who
Yeah.
does who goes over to each other's houses and has fun,
Who are
when you start realizing that you as a Muslim as a child, you can have fun with your friends just the same way that other people are having fun with their friends. The fun is the same. It's just whatever they might be doing might be different. But as long as they're having fun, you'll realize that my life isn't harder. It's just different.
it's just different. Yeah.
And that's not a bad thing.
And you can only do that with people who are also avoiding the other same things.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, you need a community. You need other people.
That's why community
to do it with.
Yeah. And community just that's why I think it's harder in the West. It's
Yeah.
harder in America. It's harder in
Absolutely.
California.
Yeah.
Right? Is because in Pakistan or in India, or actually not India, but in Pakistan or any place that has
In India too, a little bit. Yeah.
better than probably here,
Some
right?
places, yeah.
Or any place that is Muslim dominant, right?
Yes.
Your community is all around you.
Yeah.
Your neighbors are Muslim, right?
Yeah.
You're again the whole thing with the masjid being on every
We
single
have that in
corner.
India too.
Yeah, every single.
Yeah.
So, but not America.
Yeah.
Right.
Not America.
The thing is,
Honestly, I think in America we do have those communities, just that we need to be more proactive in bringing each other together.
yeah, because it doesn't happen naturally.
It doesn't. Because
Yeah.
in other countries, because you all live in such close proximity and everyone goes to the same school and everyone does everything together,
Yeah.
you eventually end up coming together. But in America, I feel like sometimes we're farther apart, sometimes location, geographically, whatever. But I think we as a Muslim ummah, and I feel like our generation and the second generation is doing a much better job of this, is
Yeah.
bringing people together regardless of distance, but finding ways to proactively bring each other together.
Yeah.
And just like the event that we're going to after this too, inshallah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's their entire goal, right?
Yeah,
And
it
we're-
bring like they're located like an hour away from us, but there's so many people coming together from different places because to find that community.
Right, and the people you meet and interact with there are the ones that you then when you are feeling down, when you feel like like I had to reject this thing, those are the ones you reach out to, those are the ones you
Exactly.
spend time with,
Absolutely.
right? And we even do that naturally on our college campus. Like,
Yeah.
have you not realized like whenever someone's just bored, they'll just come to this like
Exactly.
prayer room, and there'll be someone in this prayer room to interact with.
Yeah.
Like you'll get your interaction out here.
Yeah.
So
I think human connection is something that we sometimes I don't know, maybe this is just me, but growing up in high school, I thought the self-control that I had to have to stay away from certain people and certain sins required me to be isolationist, like it required me to not have human connection.
yeah,
Because I was a kid, so at that age I thought these sins and these obstacles that I want to stay away from are connected to human connection, therefore I shouldn't connect with other people,
Yeah.
because they're going to lead me to that sin. But it's not a human connection that is the problem. It's the people that you are connecting with
and what they're doing.
and what they're doing. So
Yeah.
it's very easy to feel as though, okay, like maybe it's just better if I just don't talk to anyone and just do my own thing and like lock in.
Yeah.
I'll be fine. But even it's not a good recipe for a healthy life.
Yeah. Completely agree.
Community.
All right.
Yeah.
So today, alhamdulillah, we talked
Alhamdulillah.
about why is it so hard to have self-control as a Muslim,
Yeah.
and just kind of how to navigate all that.
And how to deal with the compounding effects of self-control in a healthy manner.
Yeah. And I hope that you guys kind of were able to pull a couple things away from there.
Absolutely.
I definitely was enlightened on a few things. So I appreciate that.
Got you.
And
Me too. Me too.
yeah, that wraps
All
up
right.
our episode.
Jazakallah khair for tuning in, everyone. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum.